Hello, welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I've always had a thing for Grace Jones.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Vamp, which came out in 1986, directed by Richard Wenk. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Keith and AJ, who are trying to get into a fraternity in their college. They've taken on the mission of finding a stripper for this fraternity and decide to head into the local city to a local strip club to find one. But when they get there, they may realize that there's a reason why this place is open after dark.
I've seen almost every 80s vampire film that came out, especially, the mainstay ones, Near Dark, Lost Boys, Fright Night. There's quite a few others, but never even heard of Vamp.
Yeah, I know.
Really? You hadn't?
Never even heard of it. Where did this film come from?
Man, you missed out. You missed out on this one. I mean, you like you just said, you watch a lot of the 80s ones, but I mean, I remember seeing this like late one night BBC One. I can't remember if I actually, it was like early 90s I caught it, but I was flicking through the channels and I just caught it. They'd already got to the strip club and I was like, what the fuck's this?
He was like, strip club.
Yeah. But the weird thing was, when I was watching the review, I was actually trying to work out which one I saw first, Fright Night or Vamp.
Yes.
Because I started to really question, which one of them actually was my introduction into the 80s versions of vampire movies.
Yeah.
It wasn't until, obviously, later on I got into Near Dark and I realised that it wasn't all just cheesy acting and silly special effects. It could be quite,
dark.
Yeah.
Raw, edgy.
Yeah, and some real realism behind it. But then you get Vamp, and that opening sequence just tells you basically what you're seeing, isn't it? When the word Vamp comes up and, it sharpens to a point, you're like, well, it's not about werewolves, is it?
Well, I guess with it doing that, I was just like, okay, so this film is suggesting it's going to be a comedy. This is a spoof film. And, and when the film started and you've got, the ropes hanging and it looks like a corpse hanging in the window.
I totally
whoa, intense.
And then these cult members come in and start performing what looks like a ritual or sacrifice. And of course, then the rope doesn't. It's all fake. I was like, what the hell's going on?
It's like some kind of weird nightmare. And then, but the title sequences, it's really serious. The music's really serious. And you've got this really goofy opening. And you're like, okay, now I completely know what to expect. Not.
See, that's it though. I mean, I'd only seen this film like 2 or 3 times back when I was younger, and so I remember very, very, very specific points of this movie, and I forget fucking everything else. Like you said, when this opening came up and they're all walking up with the ropes, I was like, they can't be killing these guys right at the start, because I remember these guys are actually starting the film.
What's happening?
You've got Chris Makepeace playing Keith. Not really know him from anything else.
No,
I mean he
no.
did Vamp, I think, and a couple of other things, and then just kind of disappeared. But
that was it.
He's your lead for this. But his good buddy, Robert Rusler, playing AJ. This motherfucker I remember. I remember from Vamp, and I remember from Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2.
I think he was also in Strange Science as well.
Weird Science.
Weird
he was
Science.
in
Yes,
Weird
he
Science.
was. He was, yeah.
Yeah. He would go on as well. I do remember him popping up in other things later on, and he did play a couple of cool parts in Babylon 5. But I always just remembered him as this kind of cocky, good-looking,
shoulder pad wearing.
That's it, because
he is very 80s.
He is
so
very
80s.
But he's just so good, because he starts the whole conversation off at the start with the whole fraternity. Like, really, this is the best you can do. It's fake. You've got all this control and this money and this power.
It's because the guy who's running the cult, he's lip syncing to a cassette tape, which gets jammed up in the player. It's like,
You'd at least learn your lines, wouldn't you? I mean, make it more authentic looking rather than just like.
So the whole sham just falls in on of itself, and he's just like, look, we just want to hang out with you guys because you've got the best place on campus.
Yeah. We don't know how long they've been at college for, but I mean, I assume
a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they reek of newbies, don't they?
They've just been there, but they want to be part of something. It's always the thing in American colleges, but they get assigned to head off into town, and they've got no money, they've got no car, and I love it when you got AJ sat there on the phone, ringing through all the girls, like, remember me? Hey, how would you like to be a stripper for the night? Well, don't worry, I've got this, and you kind of get the friendship from the start for me between Keith and AJ. To me, it's like they've only been there for a couple of weeks, but they've been friends for years.
For ages, yeah. And then you've got Duncan as well that kind of crops up.
All right, for a week, take me with you and be my friends for a week. But all right, take me with you and just pretend to be my friends for a week.
Please be my friend, just for a week. You're like, oh, mate. Bad for him.
I think it's Geddy Watanabe playing Duncan.
Yeah.
My God, like I said, I remember specific parts, and I remember what happens to him, but I forgot how much of a fucking weedy nerd this guy is. Like he's got everything. He's stood there playing golf. He's got his own personal announcer. Mm-hmm. He's got people doing his homework for him, but he's just paying them and asking them to stay, and they don't. I'm like, this motherfucker's gonna feed me, pay me. He's gonna fucking just let me do whatever the I want.
And hopefully buy me strippers.
Yeah.
The only thing is, you've got to have him with you as your new friend for a week.
Yeah.
I could do that.
It'll be a pleasure helping you guys out. Can I call you guys? Great.
Really? Would you? If somebody's paying you to be a friend for a week and you make a shitload of money, I'd be like, same time next week.
They're at college. They're strapped for cash. They should surely be embracing having him as their friend.
Yeah, totally. Buying all their books.
But yeah, there was. He is like, I think all the way through the film, he's kind of comedy relief. He's the goofy comedy relief, and he pops up in other films in random places, like you said in Gremlins.
He's
like there with the camera, and you go, I've seen that face, but I don't know where from. And you're like, oh, yeah. So he was great. I mean, he was from the outset going to be the comedy relief. You can see that, I think, right from the very beginning, which is good because some parts of this film are not that funny. Anyway,
so they're all in the car and they're driving off. Now there's this sequence which it just feels like they get transported off the planet and put down in a completely different planet when the car spins.
Yeah.
And it keeps spinning.
Maybe they all died.
Exactly. And I'm like, either they've
died.
all died,
That's it.
they're now in limbo, or they've literally been transported into a hellscape. Because when they do, like, everybody is gone. The streets are empty.
Yeah.
It's like the apocalypse has happened and newspapers are blowing down the street. It was like, what just happened?
Only now there's magenta and like green lighting everywhere as well. You're like, where did that come from?
Exactly, it's completely alien.
Well,
bizarre.
But I was sat there, and obviously, like I said, you go into the busy city, but they're looking for this club, and it only happens after dark, and it's very much from dusk till dawn kind of setup here. And From Dusk Till Dawn kind of does the same thing. They're driving along and you've got all these locations around them, and then all of a sudden they take a turn and there's nothing. But then they turn up at the club, where in this one the club doesn't have as much as an impact as the Titty Twister.
No.
But it's kind of ominous already. Like we said, the lighting is there to kind of say, look, it's not a good place to be.
Keith foreshadows it as well, because Keith is saying, oh, this sounds like a classy place, maybe we should make a reservation, and everyone's like that, yeah. So it's not going to be like some beautiful, like the Titty Twister was amazing, there's dancing girls, it's lit in a weird way that doesn't make you feel like you're going to throw up.
Yeah.
This is a dive. This is a proper dive.
Yeah,
it's going to go wrong from here on in, don't you?
This is a massive dive. But you got Vic, the owner, I suppose, played by Sandy Barron.
So creepy.
Oh yeah, massively. The pink uniform, the jacket he's wearing. You can kind of tell immediately that obviously there's something massively wrong with the club. You shouldn't be here. But he doesn't come across. He comes across creepy, yeah. But he doesn't have kind of the
stereotypical vampire look, does he?
Yeah.
You don't think, oh, he's going to be a vampire. You think he's like a little Hugh Hefner wannabe, just at the front of the club, just like trying to get the ladies in.
Well,
and then
immediately I see him as the ghoul. you know, as the guy who probably looks after them during the day, you know. And obviously this is all coming off the back of, I saw Vamp when I was a kid. I went on to Fright Night. I went on to Near Dark. I went to From Dusk Till Dawn. I went to Byzantium. I went from vampire movie to vampire movie, learning all the different things. So then when I come back to Vamp after so many years, I'm noticing these little things.
Yes, I've done the same thing. Yeah,
like with Vlad, the bouncer. Now he doesn't look like a ghoul, but that is one scary motherfucker.
You wouldn't, if you saw him in Dark Alley, which you do later on, you wouldn't go down that alley.
No way,
like,
no.
And reversing back.
It's just the way he kind of just sits there with the cigar in his mouth, like you look at him like he's got some super strength. He'd rip your arms off if he wanted to. But the boys split up. AJ comes up with the idea of him going in first and trying to get a stripper, because obviously he's the cool one. And Keith and Duncan are supposed to stay outside. But Duncan did not travel all this way without trying to get some kind of...
Pussy!
Yeah, we go. And so they go in. And the place looks bad, run down. But it's kind of busy. You know, you've got the dregs of society in there. You know, you've got the winos and the people who won't be missed.
I particularly liked seeing the different types of stripper that they had in there. They had the dominatrix chick that, of course, appears behind AJ at the bar with her arse hanging out, which was great. She had a great arse, it's fine.
Yes, she did.
And then there's like the candy melts in your mouth and in your hand.
And he's
It's
got
like
the
every
builder,
cliche.
like the builder with the big Bob the Builder hat. I'm
She'll
like,
look after your erection. You're like, oh my god, no.
She's starting to take off her belt, and I'm like, I don't know if I should be excited about her taking off the tool belt or not.
That's because you're older now when you're watching
I
it.
know.
When you're a kid, you're like, woohoo! And now you're like, oh,
yeah, but maybe
no.
if I worked like in the trade, you know, and you're like, oh yeah,
Building trade?
Yeah, like the building trade. You're like, oh, that's a 7-pocket belt she's got on there. You can tell she's got 3 types of pliers.
Oh, she loves it.
Oh.
Okay, we've diversified a bit here. We've gone off on one.
But we started to get introduced to Dedee Pfeiffer's character, Alison, who is, she's playing this kind of young, naive waitress who, I suppose she's in college as well, and she's trying to pay her way through. And she recognises Keith right from the offset, you know, and she's starting to flirt with him. Like, you remember me? Do you remember me? And he's like, no.
And she's really annoyed that he doesn't remember. He's like, how can you not? We don't find out till later on how that all unfolds.
I love that bit where she spins the bottle in the front of the guy, and she's like, look, do you remember now?
He's like,
what the fuck are you doing with that guy's bottle?
Man, I love that sequence because she got pissed off and walked off, and that guy's just staring at the screen, and you just see this stripper's ass just start to come down from the top of the camera, and you're like, oh, that's what he's looking at. I thought he was staring at me.
There are some comedy moments in there that you don't expect. You're like, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, you can immediately tell right from the offset from how she is that she's very human-like.
Well, no, for me, throughout the whole film, I was like, it's just a gimmick. That's her. That's her way of luring people in.
Luring you in.
Yeah.
I mean, because I did notice it towards the end of the movie that there were little parts, and I was like, oh, the film's trying to kind of throw red herrings or shit to point things out, you know, and that kind of worked because it does kind of start to make you question who is what.
Yeah. Now, for this part of the film, though, is where I withdrawn from the film. I started to get really bored because it was literally now one stripper followed by another stripper followed by another stripper and I was just like, but you know, where's the plot? Where's the story? You know, if I want to see strippers, I'll go to a strip club.
And see
you
some
know?
strippers. See some strippers.
But for this film, it just was going nowhere. And for me, when the two leads were separated, the comedy was dropping down. You know, the plot was going nowhere. The pace of the film started to fall to pieces.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was just like, the chemistry between the two of them was really good. Now that they're separated, the film is just kind of meandering until, you know, it's like 40 minutes in the film and there's still no vampires.
Until that fateful scene.
That's it. Oh my god! I know not a lot of people like Grace Jones. I mean, she's a bit of a character in real life as well as her films. But you know, I saw her in this at a very young age, and she stood out to me.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, she stood out of everything else I've seen in that club.
What are we going to say about Grace Jones? She is a lady that makes an impact.
Yeah.
When she comes onto that stage, especially, you know, if having studied dance for a good few years, and I was saying this to you earlier.
Yeah.
That watching that performance, you just go, okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And you can see the influences. You know, she's got like a headless kind of art installation in there. She's being very, very Grace Jones.
She be maybe like a cat kind of thing.
Yeah, she's
of
got
the
African
claws.
influences and Japanese influences and Egyptian influences. And obviously, having red hair and white skin and blue eyes is a great thing, always.
Yeah.
But I mean, to see Grace Jones, it's very jarring, and you're like, ooh, okay, so she's going to be somebody in this film to watch.
That's it, because they give her the spotlight when she's on stage, and like I said, bringing up From Dusk Till Dawn again, it's very much the Santanico Pandemonium
No.
sequence.
That was way better.
Yeah, all right.
Salma Hayek.
I didn't.
Sorry, Iain.
I was only comparing them, saying it's kind of same.
Comment below whether you like
I didn't
Santanico
say-
Pandemonium better or Grace Jones's performance.
Of course,
I know which one I would
everybody's gonna
pick.
like the Salma Hayek performance better, but
You did.
What I'm saying is that the performance of Grace Jones stands out as the star performance, much like hers in
Yes,
From Dusk
it
Till
does,
Dawn,
yeah.
because you're like, Grace Jones is not just a normal lackey like everybody else.
No.
She's probably the head of all this place, and
She's riding a headless man's face, so you know she's going to be someone to watch.
and the fact that AJ is lured backstage by a waitress to meet up with Katrina, you know, because he wants to hire her for the party. But the club has kind of a thing going that, you know, they only take people who are alone, people who cannot be followed, people who haven't, who've got no friends. They only take them back. But he gets taken back to Katrina, and you know, it's very. It's very kind of like I don't want to say magical, but it's like I said, it's very otherworldish. You know, the way her room is all set up, you know, the lighting. AJ's walking around like
She's completely changed her appearance. She's now all like, hello.
Yeah.
Oh. She doesn't say hello, of course. She doesn't speak in the entire film. But she's just kind of this arty. I think she's a priestess, like a.
Yeah,
It's not clear in the film that she is, but in reviews.
Well, it took me back to The Hunger. If you remember in The Hunger, the main vampire in that, she was an Egyptian priestess who had fed throughout time, and
Queen of the Damned.
Yeah, so I immediately just applied that. The film doesn't tell you that. You only make it up for yourself when you see the sarcophagus with Grace Jones' face on it. You see Vlad, and he's got the picture of her wearing the headdress, where I'm like, she's an ancient Egyptian priestess who turned into a vampire, and she's been living for fucking thousands of years.
There's nods to it all the way through, isn't there?
All the way through
the film, yeah.
But this is one of these points where this will always stick with me with this film, is how violent this attack can be. Because it starts off very sexualized and
very erotic. Got a licking going on.
Fucking vampire fans love the fucking whole eroticism of vampires. When I watched this film when I was a kid, I was like, fuck that shit. No. There is nothing erotic or sexualized. I mean, it starts off that way and it all looks nice, but I'll always remember AJ going, oh my god!
She's very predatory, and you look at her going, this is too, he's there like loving life, like, brilliant, and you just go, if I just turned channels, I feel like I'm watching a porn here, and then all of a sudden there's that iconic bit, the bite, which is really gory.
Well, it's the whole watching her mouth extend. It's like it's like
and her
wolf
teeth
jaw
claws.
through.
Yeah.
You can tell that while she's there, she's kind of fighting it, but then when he keeps reading her neck, she's like, nah, it's too much, you know, I'm overcome.
Well,
And
she forces his arms down, so he's paralyzed. He can't move.
He's just like kinky.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry. If a girl ever holds both my arms down with one arm,
You're
Bit of
done.
a red flag. Bit of a red flag there.
headbutt.
Safe word. What got me in that scene actually was the transformation, because female vampires iconically are very beautiful and, you know, otherworldly, and like you said, she looked more like a wolf. She had very distended teeth, her long toenails, and grotesque, much like in Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
So, and it's very different. If you look at the male transformations in the film, they're all very just like stick
long
on teeth,
fangs.
and they've got a bit of dark circle going on and contacts.
Yeah.
Very much like the Lost Boys type thing. But the difference between the transformations.
Same makeup artist as the Lost Boys in
it?
this film.
Oh, well, I did not know that.
So that was it. I mean, Richard Wenk never really did anything more after Vamp. I mean, he didn't.
Not surprised.
He's a writer primarily.
Yeah.
He wrote both the Equalizer movies.
Oh.
He also wrote Expendables 2 as well. So he's got a long list as a writer, not much so much
You're
as a
full
director.
of information, you are. Full of information. I did not know that.
But after she's killed AJ, Keith and Duncan are still in the club and they're waiting, and Alison is obviously still trying to coax the information out of Keith of like, do you remember me? Do you remember me? And they're like, no. And this is where the film for me starts to take a bit of a dive, because Keith realizes that AJ hasn't returned and starts to question the waitress who took him backstage, and she's like, I don't know who you're talking about, and realizes she's fucked up. You know, AJ was supposed to be on his own. But Alison gets the information for Keith that AJ may have been taken back to a local hotel with one of the strippers, and so that they should just leave Duncan at this fucking place and go.
Well, Duncan's already in heaven right now. He's
surrounded
by half-naked women and
he's got
drinking.
loads of money.
But no, you don't do that to some random fucking stranger
who's
not even
his friend. He's our fake friend.
That's even worse. We don't know where we are. You're my fake friend, so.
Well, the earlier scene when you meet Snow, who looks like Grandad Malfoy, by the way, or Billy Idol on crack. And that girl with the big teeth, that's where you...
Billy Drago,
Drago
just passed away last week.
I feel bad now.
Amazing. He's an amazing actor. And we didn't talk about the sequence with them in the coffee shop. And the coffee shop owner tries to turn into a priest quickly so that he can leave before it turns dark.
That brings you back to kind of Duncan. And when you say, but he's their friend, well, he's not, because he goes and stays in the toilet while the big fight's happening.
Yeah, that fight sequence was brilliant. But Billy Drago, he plays an albino who's the leader of a gang of albinos.
Called Snow.
Now, I never realised this until watching the film, but there's a sequence later where the gang is chasing Keith. Yeah. And they have 3 black women in the gang. Yeah. And 3 albino men.
Yeah, it's a very diverse group. Very diverse.
What part of the movie? I mean, you said he was a writer. Did the writer go, I'm going to throw the audience off. I'm going to make albinos come in and people are going to be like, oh, they're the vampires. It's like, no.
I'm still convinced they all died in a car crash at this point.
That's it. You're like, what on earth is happening? Yeah. What on earth? Yeah.
Because Alison takes Keith back to the hotel, and I knew this when I was a kid, and obviously I kept it with me now, is that you start to realise that the surrounding neighbourhood is very kind of vampire controlled. I mean, when they walk past that little girl sitting on the steps,
you go, she's a vampire.
She's a fucking vampire.
That's it.
Nobody would ever just leave their child out after midnight sat on a step.
Laddie in Lost Boys, Claudia in Interview with the Vampire. You know there's going to be a child in there somewhere.
But this was one of the first instances in the film that I've seen done it. All the other ones have copied it.
Come afterwards.
Yeah. But they get back to the hotel and they get told the room that Candy might be in, so they head up there. And Alison and Keith are split up, and then he's almost killed by an elevator. Yeah. Which I'm like, random. We're following, because we're cutting back to the club as well, where Vic is talking to Katrina about the mess that they've got to deal with the death of AJ, and Katrina has just ripped the fucking heart out of that waitress for messing up. But I'm like, okay, so these guys are worried that the cops are going to get involved and their little business is going to be done in. They're fucking vampires! Why the fuck aren't they just going over there and ripping him to pieces? Why are they trying to kill him with an elevator?
Makes no sense. None whatsoever.
Looks like an accident.
Looks like an accident.
Where, in contrast to that, they're just chucking AJ's body into the trash, so they can't be that concerned.
Along with the other vampire waitress.
That's it. You're like, he's there, he's just dead in there. Oh, well, let's kill him with an elevator. Yeah. Really? Okay, well.
But he escapes from the elevator and he catches up with Alison, who, who's walking away. She's like, oh, they told me you left. And he's like, I'm having the worst night. This has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. It's all going bad. And I'm like, you kind of brought this on yourself. You could have gone to any other strip club in the whole of this bloody city.
This is the only one, isn't there?
I don't know. God. I mean, like you said, they could be fucking dead for all we know.
Because they're supposed to be in a small town, which is the reason why they had to go out of the college campus, because there was nobody in the area.
They drove. It must have been a fair way, I thought.
But they drove across what appeared to be like great pastures and deserts. But then you see the skyline of the city, and I'm like, well, that looks like Chicago at least.
Yeah.
It makes very little sense.
That's no small town. Yeah, the sewers.
The disco sewers that are brightly lit with pink and green.
I mean,
you could bathe in those sewers, They're
so clean.
I kind of like the whole fantasy element of it, It's mystical, I suppose. There's some kind of magic thing going on that they've got control of the sewers.
But it was just a set that they didn't finish properly.
Yeah, or it's just a set. Well, you knew it was going to have to build up to the grand finale. I mean, to put all this effort into the sewers to make it look like this, you knew they'd have to come back. But we're following Snow and his gang, and I always believed at some points that they were vampires, but they start getting taken out by vampires. Like one of them actually gets taken out by the little girl.
Yeah, till this moment, I thought they were vampires.
Yeah.
And they're not vampires.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I got the impression they were vampires because they turned up at the restaurant at the beginning, at the moment it got dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought they were maybe, the bouncers, I guess, outside. So if those escaped, they would
leave it.
They
Yeah.
shut them up. Yeah.
Because the film suggests that, well, the film initially suggests all the vampires are confined to this club.
Yeah.
But then when you see other vampires outside, you're just like, well, I guess so it's not just confined to this club, because later on the club owner explains that, we feed on the strays that come into the club. I'm like, well, what about all the fucking vampires that are outside? Like, that's not even mentioned. It's like, the film's contradicting itself.
It does. I mean, I kind of put that down to, obviously, they must follow Katrina. She's the queen vampire. So, from what we know, with all the stuff we've learned over vampires over the last 40 odd years between us, it's like, when you've got one head vampire, you will not mess with her. You will not do anything to put a problem with her, because they'll just, decapitate you. And you get that from Vic's character as well, because like I said, he's very much a ghoul because he feeds from her. But even though Katrina doesn't say a word throughout the film, her presence, the way she kind of roar every now and again, everybody just jumps.
But he's also eating insects out of a peanut bowl.
But didn't the guy from Fright Night as well do the same thing? He used to eat bugs. And the guy from Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I was going to say that's a reference to Bram Stoker, isn't it? Eating insects and taking life in that's, inferior to yours. But, I mean, with Katrina, you see her popping up several times, and she's always in, like, a different outfit.
Yeah.
And I think I've watched a VHS, an old clip of Grace Jones talking about Katrina and saying she's basically reincarnating all her previous lives. So when you see her dressed Egyptian priestess, you see her dressed as an African wise woman, and you see all this coming up. But from if you just watch it first off, I remember thinking, she looks like she's got a TV aerial embedded in her head, and I was like trying to place when I was a kid, like, what is she? Is she a vampire? Okay, she is. And when you go back and watch it second time, you go, oh, that's a reference to that. Okay, now it makes more sense as an adult. Don't watch it as a kid.
But that's what always made Katrina really stand out for me was Grace Jones made the character hers. She wanted to make this vampire stand out so that you'd remember it for the film.
She's very Amazonian as well. She's very kind of tall and strong. And,
oh, God, yeah. Conan the Destroyer, when she gets that bow staff out.
Oh, yeah.
And Mayday from View to a Kill. Oh, yeah.
Well, apparently they had a lot of trouble with Grace Jones on the set.
Really?
Because Grace Jones is Grace Jones. They would have times where they would turn up on set to shoot.
Yeah.
9 hours later, and Grace Jones still hasn't turned up yet. And she wouldn't.
Damn.
They had a lot of trouble working with Grace Jones on the film, where she's such a diva. She just chose days to not turn up and do her part.
That's why she's not got any speaking parts probably in this film.
Dialogue, and they just
learned it.
And they just managed to film her scenes when she turned up. But yeah, she's the poster for the film.
Yeah,
she's the head vampiress, but she's not in it very much. But then I was like, that's the same in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't say a word in the film either.
Yeah,
or maybe she has one line.
And she's killed off right in the first 10 minutes. But it also, that kind of, I think, works for the director and the way the film works, because the camera is more focused on our heroes, on Keith and Alison and Duncan and kind of AJ. Yeah. Having too much of Grace Jones would have lessened the impact of how her,
maybe.
Yeah,
she was such an icon at the time, wasn't she? That it would have been with kind of she does tend to steal the show wherever she goes for whatever reason, because of her crazy behaviour in real life.
Yeah.
And because of the way she was looking in that film, so striking, it would have. I think she steals the scene whenever she's in it. So
yeah.
But it was strange having all like the main like characters separated, and I think it does throughout the film it does die a little bit because you've not got them together bouncing off each other. I love the relationship between Keith and Alison, and their kind of, do you remember me? Do you not remember me? Type thing.
Yeah.
She likes him blatantly and he's oblivious. Yeah. And it's a nice little story to have in there, they've put it in for the girls, bit of a, romance.
He's gonna save the girl. But it's when he finds AJ's body and he knows that AJ's dead now, and he phones the police.
Yeah.
And says, right, you've got to get to the club. You know, you've got to shut this place down. And then when they finally gets back to the club, he meets up with AJ. Now, I knew this when I was a fucking kid, and I still know it now. That motherfucker is not alive. You can tell he's not alive. There is a drained colour in his face.
He's got
the
some eyes
transfixed
going
there.
on.
But the cops are there, and the cops are obviously talking to Keith, and they're like, look, you know, you're causing trouble. You know, we don't believe you. There's no vampires. And you start to question, you know, are the cops in on it? You know, are they part of it as well? But Vic actually says something like, yeah, we'll go get the last show. And I love those little bits in the club where every now and again you'll see a girl kissing somebody in the neck. And then 2 minutes later, Vic comes along and goes, does anybody own this guy? No, right, get him out of here. And they just throw the bodies outside. And I'm like, that's really good, actually.
Inconspicuous. Yeah, blatantly.
But this is where AJ and Keith confront each other because they're attacked by the bondage vampire. And Keith stakes her with a stiletto, which I always thought was kind of ingenious, you know. Yeah. Any sharp object to the heart will do it. Normally. But AJ then turns, and he's, for me, it was the friendship. You know, this is where the friendship was really shown, because it was the case of, I want to eat you because I have this terrible hunger inside that I'm trying to fight. But you're my friend, and I've known you for years, and I don't want to.
I love you, Keith. But all I can see right now is food. And I'm starving.
That scene annoyed me, like,
Really?
beyond all belief, because, oh, hello, Vampire Law, I'm just going to spit in your face.
Well,
like,
yeah.
if you turn, like, you know, he says, I'm a fucking zombie, and you're like, well, you're acting like a zombie rather than a vampire, because a vampire...
Well, he was
surely
killed.
Yeah, he was killed. He was dead in the trash, which he happened to stumble across. More about that later. And it was just a case of, like, well, all Vampire Law, surely, if he was dead in the trash, to become a vampire, you have to suck on and be sucked on.
No.
Right, here we go.
Blade 1 with the
great
nurse.
film.
Blade 1 with the nurse, when she's attacked at the beginning by the guy who's been set on fire by Blade, and he bites the other doctor and kills him. The doctor comes back later on as a ghoul.
Traditional vampire storytelling, though, is there needs to be a transfusion of the blood. It's the whole sexual, bodily fluids.
Well,
exchanging.
no,
Yes.
but
So traditional, original vampires.
Traditional is a
exchange.
transference, and there was a transference when Katrina was obviously dealing with AJ when she was feeding him. She was licking his blood, and there was probably a bit of a saliva exchange just there.
That's a very weak link
yeah,
there.
wait, no, hold on. Now we know that AJ's body was thrown outside in the trash, and we do not know what they do with the bodies after. The bodies may have been taken away by the other rubbish vampire hunters and cut off their heads and destroyed them. But because we know that Vic decided to bring the bodies back in, and the bodies weren't destroyed.
That's because they knew the police were turning up.
But because of that, because the bodies weren't destroyed, it gave AJ the chance of turning.
Okay.
But not completely turning to the point like all the other strippers.
I'm
like
not
you said,
convinced.
Because otherwise
they
they're just
haven't.
like, we'll put the bodies out there and, they turned to vampires. Oh, oops.
Well, no, because
Oopsie.
because they put the bodies in the trash, and then the vampire rubbish collectors deal with those bodies.
I love that exchange with here's some wallets.
Yeah, here's the
Here's
wallets.
some money.
Here are the keys.
Here's the bodies.
You
In
know,
the alleyway.
Yeah.
He looks and sees Keith and goes, oh yeah, that's not great, is it?
that's what
They're
I put down to
the
it.
sloppiest killers ever. Sloppy.
Yeah.
Normally they're really on top of it, but because they needed AJ to come back in, and how do we know that there wasn't an exchange of blood? What we didn't see,
Because we don't see it.
But just because we don't see it doesn't mean that didn't
He was
happen.
already dead, that's the thing. Surely
he
they
was
have,
dead.
they have to be
You can't drink it.
interview the vampire, they have to be on the brink of death, suck the blood.
Fucking
look.
Anne Rice. You're gonna bring fucking Anne Rice into this shit? Fucking 80s fucking vampire movie. You're gonna bring Anne Rice into this shit?
I'm bringing the
Bring a
story
vampire.
and the lore
Man, yeah,
into
well,
this
you
shit.
can Google this motherfucker as much as you want. Many universes are very different. Look at the vampires in From Dusk Till Dawn. There was no transference of blood between Quentin Tarantino and Santanico Pandemonium, and he turned. There was no transfer of blood between Harvey Keitel and the other vampires, and he turned.
We could name a million films where there is transference and they do turn them.
You could.
Specifically.
But that's what I'm saying is that many vampire movies do it very differently. But with this one, AJ has turned, he's fighting it. And I like the fact that he was obviously still partially in control and didn't want to kill his friend. because at the same time, his friend was actually like, just kill me. AJ doesn't want to kill Keith and uses a piece of wood to stake himself. And we believe at that point that he is completely dead. And Keith then decides that he wants out there. He needs to get Alison, he needs to get Duncan, and they need to escape. Yeah. But they're stopped by Vic. And Vic says to him, look, we can't let you leave. You know you can't leave. And you know that, they are completely surrounded and they are weak. Yeah. But it's I like the fact that it's like, yeah, one last drink. I'll have a brandy. Make it double. Make it triple. Actually, leave the bottle because, I'm gonna die in a minute. I'm not driving home, and then he just starts spilling it over the whole place, and I'm like,
whoops.
This place is such a dive. They don't care that he's spilling.
You're telling me that this is the first time drinks have been spilled?
I know the floor must be like so saturated with drink. That's why it goes up so well.
Sticky floors, nice. Everyone's been to a club that's got sticky floors. Yeah. And go, oh, this is a nice place.
Yes,
I'm spilled drink.
Might be able to dance later if I can move. But he convinces Alison to do the same, and they set fire to the place, and they escape through the hatch behind the bar, and escape into the basement, and then back out into the street. Now this is another part that I'll always remember, always sticks with me, is when they get into the car and they start driving away, and Duncan starts to change. And I remember the first time I watched it, I actually did get quite upset that their friend had been turned into a vampire, and then the way they deal with him, I'm like, how the fuck are you going to explain that shit to his parents tomorrow?
Again, friend. He wasn't their friend. He was just like a Klingon.
But still, you've left the college with this guy in his car, and now there's reports that his car has burst into flames and he's dead.
Now,
but you're okay?
The car, they burst the tires going over the grill, and then they crash into a car, and then the car sets on fire. Well, they escape the car, and then the car just fucking explodes. This car's only had its tires burst, and this car fucking explodes.
Guys, I love that. Guys, he says as he's dying. I'm just sat there like, how?
That's harsh.
Yeah.
Poor Duncan.
But right at the end, though, we're surrounded by vampires. There's a lot of them, and not just the strippers. We see people who've been in the sewers.
Rat guy.
The rat guy.
I hate that guy. He's like, I've forgotten what he says, but
he says, I found my friend.
That's it. Makes me shudder, and he bites the rat. And you're like, oh.
You've got the little girl. You've got.
I love her.
You've got the trash truck drivers and all those all the people. They do not want these two to leave. But then we end up with Snow and his gang turning up
again,
saving the day. And Vic and Alison, and Keith and Alison make a run for it and leave Billy Drago to get eaten.
What gang is this?
What? Yeah, like I understand he was kind of the threat when they got outside the club. Yeah. But the vampires were the bigger threat, so I never saw Billy Drago and his gang as a threat.
I did, because I thought he was a vampire. Even before Lost Boys came out, leather jacket says bad boy.
Yeah.
And then he's got like the, Billy Idol on crack type look about him. And then he's got what really confused me is he's got like a Ban the Bomb earrings. I'm like, oh, you're all about the peace, you are. Yeah.
It was the girl in the coffee shop with the teeth that made me go, nah, they ain't vampires, because there's no way you could be vampires with that set of teeth.
Oh man, that was harsh, and she was kind of filleting that Twizzler. I was like, I'm never eating Twizzlers again. Yeah. I love it when he spits his tea out, and then she like takes offence at that because oh man.
Alison finally reveals her secret to Keith at this point by telling him that they played Spin the Bottle back when they were younger. And he made the move to give her a kiss, which has always stuck with her, and she's kind of always loved him. And if they meet up with AJ, he'll recognise her instantly. And I was just like, well, that's a cool thing.
Don't think he will.
Don't think he will, but then they hide into the sewers, and they find the secret area that the vampires are using as kind of their sleeping.
Crypt, their crypt, yeah.
I mean, typical vampire lore, we all sleep in coffins.
With Egyptian statues in the corner, another nod to that in that scene.
I mean, okay, just explain it. What is it with vampires in coffins? Like, why does it have to specifically be a coffin?
I suppose keeps the sunlight out. That's probably what it is.
I don't know,
isn't it?
some of them don't look like they're getting in coffins, just boxes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Depends how rich you are.
but it's
They're
like
costly.
it has to be of a particular shape. It has to be a coffin shape. I mean, I know in like the old Dracula lore, it's like all he has to do is sleep in the earth of his land. You know, so I kind of sometimes want to imagine that's what vampires do when they have these coffins. It's like, look, I was dead. This reminds me, it kind of rejuvenates me. But then when you see Katrina's sarcophagus, I'm like, you're telling me she's kept that with her for thousands of years, you know, and that's where she sleeps? Yeah, like I said, I saw the coffins, and, you know, when you've seen other vampire movies where, like we said, with the Lost Boys, they hang upside down. You know, they don't have coffins, you
It's
know.
like a massive coffin.
You know, I look at this and I'm like, you're taking stuff you already know from traditional vampire lore, and then you're applying it to your new kind of stuff. So I can go with it, but I didn't need to see all these coffins. They're in their own little crypt.
And of course, every vampire keeps, you know, big
Barrels
drums
of-
of like, I was going to Vaseline then.
Gasoline.
Sorry, terrible insight into my private life there.
What the fuck was that? It's like, don't light any matches. Yeah. Barrels of gasoline. It's just like,
Just in the corner for no reason.
what? Because they just use it. They use all this gasoline now to burn the place down.
Yeah.
And kill.
Take the barrels over.
I mean, I like to think that they killed all the vampires, but I don't think that's all the vampires that would be hiding in
No.
there. It's the majority of them, the strippers at least, and a couple of the
rat guy.
the rat guy, less known characters. They burn them all, and they start to race down the sewers, and Alison is captured by Katrina, and you have this face-off now between Keith and Katrina, and I do prefer the final confrontation from Fright Night between the vampire lord and the main character compared to this, because, you know, Grace Jones is kind of impactful. She's got the bald head, she's got the makeup in, she's looking very demonic, but it just drags out. You know, he nails her in the fucking mouth with a fucking arrow, and I'm like, right, just keep firing then.
And then the actual death of her, you're like, well, that was a disappointment.
Aren't they supposed to burn up or something? You know, that's what we know. But yeah, it's like
all of her skin just comes off.
She's just a Voldemort, basically, doesn't she?
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, oh, the skin is just coming off.
Oh
I want it
wow!
to
I would have loved Voldemort giving the finger to Harry at the end of the fight. That would have been great. Yeah.
That was great.
But it was kind of weird. Yeah, he shoots her in the mouth and he just prods the ceiling, and some like and then he prods the other part, so she's trapped now, and then he goes haha, and he prods the final one. I'm like, could have just run to the side.
She takes ages to die as well.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
She just sits there in the sunlight.
I'm melting.
It ain't no death by stereo, is it?
No.
It's not, which is a much better Arrow death scene.
Yeah, and like I said, the final fight with the guy in Fright Night is a bigger explosion.
But I did like the middle finger. I was just like,
That was great.
It's fine.
Yeah, I was like why?
falls off.
Why would you do that? Like, fuck her. But we get another kind of red herring. We'd seen a couple of them throughout the film between Alison and Keith, where like there was that mirror in the shop when they were getting the bow and arrow, and as they walked past, was she reflected in it or not?
Yeah.
You know, and why has he not seen her all this time, and she's working in this club? She must be a vampire. And so he gets her to come up to the sewer lid, doesn't he?
Yes.
And I like the way where he's like, "Oh, honey, can you come up here?" And I'm like, you've known her for about 5 fucking minutes, and you're already that close in your relationship? Oh, okay.
Honey.
And he pulls her up and he just lifts the lid and shines in her face, and she doesn't burst into flames. He's like, okay, I'm happy.
We're safe.
But then they climb out and she's grabbed by Vlad. And Vlad's like, you killed my Katrina. And like I said, I always remember this final part as well, because, you know, I didn't expect this guy to still be alive. Out of everybody that we've seen throughout the film, he's still alive. And then it's AJ smacking him in the back with a stake and killing him. And what was it he says? It's just like pewter. It's the type of wood that he got staked with doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Formica. Go figure.
I think this ending was
It's
kind
goofy,
of
so.
it was goofy to kind of establish that their friendship is still alive, because, you know, he doesn't want to kill them. He just kind of still wants to hang out with them, and he's like, hey, maybe I'll go to night school, and maybe I'll get a graveyard shift. And I always kind of, I mean, I know there's a Fright Night 2, which is shit, but I always wanted a Vamp 2, where, you know,
That would be amazing.
AJ, yeah, see,
That would be
AJ and
amazing.
Keith like go off and they find another vampire hole, but AJ has to, you know, use his vampire
I want to
power.
see Katrina not killed and actually having gone to Vegas and what happens then, because then
Oh,
you
yeah,
can't hide in
Vic.
Vegas.
Yeah,
He's
Vic.
like, let's go to Vegas, Vic. Let's go to
Vic,
Vegas.
yeah.
How are you going to cover up that in Vegas, Vic? Think
You
about
can't
these
even
things.
cover it up in this washed out beat down
But
town.
the mafia did it for a long time, covering
Well-
up dead bodies.
Okay,
in
don't mention the
Vegas.
mafia
Yeah.
in this video. Just edit that bit out.
So Ian, any favourite scenes from Vamp?
Yes, I have a few. I love the opening with Duncan. Can you pretend to be my friend? It's just so awkwardly, you know, like you just want to kind of have him as your buddy. You know, he's not a threat, and he's very friendly, and he kind of goofy, and he seems to need to be protected. Plus, he's got a shit ton of money
And cars.
so
Useful.
why can't we be his friend? AJ dealing with Snow in the coffee shop, you know, when he grabs him by the nutsack and just lifts him up on the side, and I'm like, that's Billy Drago. He would fuck you up normally, but this is his normal part. I love AJ at the bar, especially this part of the bar where he looks over and you've got the girl next to him with the ass, and he's like,
This
yeah.
one? This one?
I kind of gotta admit, AJ was pretty badass throughout the film, even when he did get turned into a vampire. Grace Jones ripping the waitress's heart out. You know, it's just so sudden. The waitress is trying to be really, really nice. I'm your servant. It was a gift. I'm really, really sorry. But Grace Jones is like, bam! You're like, ooh.
This way she just sits there with it afterwards for a little while.
And just laughs. Like,
Yeah, the laugh is the only kind of vocal noise she makes during the whole film. You're like, oh, she just laughed. Yay!
Well, I guess Vegas is out.
I like the whole sequence between AJ and Keith when he is a vampire and he's asking his friend to kill him. You know, I know it's kind of sappy, but I can't remember another vampire movie I've seen where it's like this. You know, where you have a guy who's been turned into a vampire, he's pleading for his friend to finish him, but the friend who is still alive actually wants him to kill him because he wants to help his friend. You know, and then it's the sacrifice. I think that's also it as well, is AJ's sacrifice. And I just love that last sequence. Not the death of Katrina, but the way the vampire hand just kind of comes up and goes. I'm like,
pretty good.
Yeah.
Hannah, any favourite scenes from Vamp?
Oh gosh, I do, for the bizarre factor, I do like the Grace Jones performance, and having studied dance and performance, I was looking at it going, oh, I see this totally differently now as an adult. This is amazing.
Yeah.
So
And
what
the-
was she trying to convey?
God knows. God knows.
She was trying to entice people, I
She's-
suppose.
yeah, she's trying to be
entice people
seductive.
backstage.
It was very
yeah.
animalistic
Yeah.
from what I got
It was
from it.
very, and it's very tribal, and you get to see her like coat hangers out, not coat hangers, hobs from an oven.
Kitchen hobs.
That's
yeah.
it. I'll be wearing that bikini on the beach this year.
Yeah, yeah.
Not. And she's, it's just the full-on wow factor of seeing her shove her vagina into a headless man's face quite aggressively. I enjoyed that scene just because of the pure bizarreness, and the end, the comical bit at the end, where representing all of us that watch that, the audience go, what just happened?
The slow clap.
I think it was supposed to be amazing, but I don't quite know why. It's like a mix of like installation art, performance art, burlesque, because she takes some stuff off, like tribal dancing. They just do a lot of dancing. It's more suggestive, but compared to, it's better dancing than the rest of the strippers do, which always pains me. Why can't they
just
have
waddle.
strippers that can dance? They're just like wiggling. Like, come on, just give me a call. I will sort some choreography out for you. It'll be fine. But besides that scene, there's one other that's quite an obscure one that I don't think we've mentioned yet, but I loved it.
Right.
Was when the little girl vampire, I think it's Keith that's hiding below that one.
Yeah,
Keith's
yeah.
hiding below the like sewer level, and then one of the albino albino vampires, non-vampires, we don't
Yeah.
know properly, just gets attacked by this little girl, and you go, oh, she's a vampire. But she's just flailing. She's just hanging by her
Yeah,
teeth.
on
He's
his
trying
arm.
to shake off with like
He's
an
like
It's like he's trying to shake off a dog that's bitten him, and her legs just flying backwards. I
It's
just
like
found
a
that
doll. It's just...
It is, and I just found that hilarious.
Yeah.
And so I think the good thing about this film, if I'm going to take something good away from it, is the fact that there are a couple of genuine scare moments and
Yeah.
a couple of genuinely funny moments. And I think I like the scenes that combine both those, or either do one or the other really well. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a scene quite early on that I was like, that's very well done. The timing was right, the performance was right, and the joke I really liked. And because they're talking, they want to go to the fraternity, they want to go and hang out in the castle is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, maybe going through all this trouble, is it really worth all that? And he just opens the door.
Yeah.
And you can see the chaos that's going on in the corridor outside, and he just closes the door again. And he's like, "Yeah, fuck that." I was like, that's that was a good joke.
Yeah.
We like it.
Of course, Grace Jones. You're not going to forget that now. It's not a favourite scene, but you'll never forget it.
You never
Once you've
forget it.
seen
Yeah.
that
It can't
performance.
be unseen. Can't be unseen.
The girl vampire hanging off the other guy. Just so stupid.
The way
Stupid,
she
but great.
launches at Billy Drago though, when that got me. I was like, oh fuck, I don't remember.
See,
her
that
fucking
was a
doing
good
that.
effect. But
Yeah.
the wide shot of him spinning around in circles.
Just
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
Just hilarious.
So funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The car exploding for no reason, you know.
Mate,
a small collision.
80s cars exploded for no reason.
I know they did.
That's why they had to get recalls.
That's it.
And the vampire middle finger after death. But I will say there was one line from that vampire that did make me laugh.
Yeah.
And that is when he goes up to the waitress and he says, "What time do you get off? And can I watch?"
Say, babe, what time do you get off?
2:30.
Can I watch?
Oh no, he didn't
Yeah,
say that.
Duncan does have some of the best
Yeah,
lines.
some of the best
He
ones.
has some
like
great
this.
ones.
When he says to Alison, when she comes up and she's talking to Keith and he pulls out like a 50 and he goes, "Have you got any friends that remember me?" And she takes the money and just walks away and he's like, "I guess not."
I love it. Goofy laughs. We like that.
Yeah.
So Hannah, do you recommend Vamp?
As a B movie, I can
Yeah.
see why Ian's looking at me here.
You say, you're free to say whatever you want, girl.
Good, because I will. As a goofy B movie, yeah, it's worth a watch. As a vampire movie, there are so many that are so much better. Obviously, you've seen us review Lost Boys before. That's always my number one. Interview the Vampire. I liked Queen of the Damned. I know some people didn't. I love that. Next review, we'll do that next. We can argue that next.
I like
Really?
music.
I'd rather
music's
do.
amazing.
I'd rather do. I bought a vampire motorcycle than fucking Queen of the Damned. You want to talk about bad fucking vampire movies? We'll go bad vampire fucking movies.
What is wrong
Easy.
with you?
I know, it's fucked up.
That's fucked up. Yeah, so there's better vampire films out there. There's loads of better vampire films. Near Dark, Dusk Till Dawn is one of my favourites. And there's loads. So as a B movie, one off, yeah, I haven't gone back and watched it loads of times. I hadn't watched it for about a decade, I think, because I completely forgot it existed.
yeah.
And so a goofy one-nighter, it's great. Yeah.
I kind of half recommend the film.
Yeah.
I found it fun to watch.
Yeah.
It was fairly creative with the look and the style, especially when it comes to the colour and the lighting. The camera work was fine. There was lots of Dutch angles, where the camera's kind of half tilted.
Yeah.
But the cast all did a great job. It's just that the story is what was lacking. And the pace just drops so much throughout the middle of the film. The comedy works, but it's not exactly a laugh a minute. The gore is light, but the special effects are decent, although they're limited. I found it an interesting watch. It's not the best, but it does have some very memorable moments. It was enjoyable, so I kind of half recommend the film.
Do you think, like what we said though? I mean, from what we've been saying through the review, do you think the film marginally suffered majorly because of Grace Jones not turning up on set, and so the director had to retcon the story with these other little things, let's get the gang in there, let's get the fucking neighborhood in there, let's get them outside of the club. Why? Because we ain't got fucking Grace Jones. We can't do half the fucking scenes that we were planning on doing today.
It's a possibility, but I think if they did, they worked around that fairly well.
Yeah. I do recommend Vamp. I mean, I know you get traditionalists who are like, "Oh my god, if they don't do this, it's not a vampire movie." Fuck that shit.
Right?
It's a
It's
fucking...
the same as zombies.
It's
Ian,
a
where they
fucking
sprint or
vampire
run
movie.
in a virus.
Yeah,
on that.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Don't get me started on that 28 days later shit, man. Don't get me started.
Next
But
review.
it's like I said, for me, I watched this when I was young in the 80s, and I suppose it kind of retcons with Gary when he grew up watching 80s movies that when you watch a movie at a certain age, at a certain time in your life, it does have a bit of an impact on you. And Vamp opened the door for me. Like I said, I don't know if I remember seeing this before not Fright Night or not. I definitely saw this before I watched Lost Boys, and I definitely watched it before I saw Near Dark.
I saw it after Lost Boys.
But it was a vampire movie to me, and I like vampire movies, and I like different things. Bringing up actually different lore. Byzantium's got some different fucking lore in it.
Very different.
Thank you very much.
It has.
And that's what I always take from these films, is that you know, traditional stuff goes completely out the window for me when it comes to storytelling. You know, the director has an idea, he's going to try something. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Vamp borderlines being, like you said, a one night watch and being like, yeah, I saw it, it was okay. And with Gary's seen it now, he'll probably never ever go back to it. I hadn't seen it in about 20 fucking years.
Yeah.
But I remember it. And like I said, I put out the points that stick out. AJ's death, you know, the death of Duncan, the look of Grace Jones, you know, just the way the club was and how well that was then influenced in From Dusk Till Dawn. And, you know, fucking From Dusk Till Dawn's awesome. So if you're a vampire movie fan and you've never seen this, go and watch it. It may not ever go back onto your list again, but you'll at least seen it. If you're an 80s fan, it ticks those boxes. And if you have seen it, but you haven't seen it in years, go back and watch it. You may not remember it as well, but there may be some bits that stick out and you go, oh shit, I forgot that.
You notice a lot more second time you watch it, I think, is if you're an 80s fan as well, there's some great, like, references to the 80s. I mean, AJ in his, like, big padded coats and his coiffed hair, and there's some really, like, lovely little Easter eggs in there that you can see where people have gone, massive 80s reference. So that's a lot of fun. Spot the 80s, yeah.
Spot the 80s.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Get this over with quick. I'm in the mood for love simply because they're naked.